Hello everyone, my name is Masterofroflness and I recently did an interview with Al Bickham of Creative Assembly. Unfortunately, my microphone volume was messed up, so basically sections where I was talking have been completely deleted, and I've also interspersed B-roll footage into the video itself. Without further ado, here you go. I want to say this, the B-roll footage was of an older version of the game, so you might be disappointed in that regard.
Al Bickham from Creative Assembly. Communications manager, so I work with the community team and I work with the dev team. I basically work with the development team to bring code to shows like this and then be able to talk about the game in detail as well. So
now we get on to our first real major question with Total War Warhammer, which would be the multiplayer modes that could come into the game. Personally, I always found that there could be always some more innovation when it comes to some of the multiplayer modes in Total War games. And I feel like Total War Warhammer is the perfect place to kind of test the waters a little bit. Like maybe something like a free-for-all mode or something akin to Warhammer, the tabletop Warhammer games, like the point system. So that's what you're going to be hearing right now.
So for multiplayer, I mean, it's hard talking about balancing with Warhammer. And if you've ever played the tabletop game, you'll know that you can kind of custom build to take someone apart, because that's the nature of the game. You can push certain armies in certain directions to do certain things really well. So we don't call it balancing as such, it's more kind of asymmetrical balancing, because you've got different armies that do very different things. So you take vampire counts, you're not going to be shooting anybody because you haven't got any ranged units whatsoever, right? They've got more, like if you take Manfred von Carstein for example, he's got 2 potential schools of magic that he can take, right? So he's going to be throwing more spells around as a single character. But then you don't have shooting either. So you know, it's about finding a balance that works. You know, for you as a player, for building an army, and in multiplayer as well, multiplayer armies. So when you're building, you know, when you're putting an army together in the multiplayer menu, you can also loads of heroes and lords and the legendary lords in the campaign game. They get access to mounts and you know, upgrades of that kind as well, and you can spend more points to mount them on things. So Manfred, for example, I think when he's like level 27 or level 30 in the campaign game, he gets to, he unlocks Zombie Dragon to use as a mount, right? Which does make him very powerful, because then he's a flying dual spellcaster that can hover above and cast stuff down. Doesn't make him invincible, however, because there's always a counter. So with flying units, big monsters like that, if you're fighting against a ranged heavy army, then they're going to be picking away at you all the time in the sky, because that's one of the things you're vulnerable to. Likewise, if you get on the ground, you are a single source of damage, but you could be surrounded by multiple units that are pecking away at you. And if your opponent is smart and he's holding his great swords or his halberds, you know, his armor piercing, anti-large stuff, like in reserve, he'll swamp you and he'll start taking you down. So it's about knowing how to counter the threats that are coming towards you as much as it is about balance, I suppose.
This question I asked Total War Warhammer's future and how it's going to be able to represent every single race, as well as how every single standalone expansion pack will be able to necessarily fit into one cohesive whole. Meaning, do I need expansion pack Z in order to play with expansion pack A? And if I have A and Z, will that allow me to have a bigger gameplay experience, or will they be just completely separate?
Right, so first of all, it's going to take a long time, because you've seen the level of detail we're putting into each of the races, and that's not just a stats thing. It's the art, it's the insane levels of animation, and so obviously some armies take a lot more animation work than others. So Empire, it's all guys. We can do a lot of that at the mocap studio. Greenskins, you know, you've got giant spiders and giants and things like that, so you can't really use the motion cap studio for that. So some races are a lot more kind of art costly, if you like, to build. So in short, all that adds up to you know, quite a long cycle. This is going to be before the game is effectively complete. You know, each individual installment is going to be pretty big in its own right. So you know, if you check out the campaign map for the initial launch, which is on May 24th, then you know, you can see there's a fully formed Total War game in there already in terms of geographic scope. Over time, we'll be launching expansions. There's 2 major expansions further down the line. Not figured out the dates of that yet, but that will come over time. And those expansions will open up new parts of the Warhammer world. So the initial launch basically deals with the old world, which in the Warhammer world, I don't know if you've ever seen the Warhammer world map. It's basically kind of like a sort of fantasy allegory to the world map of the Earth, the real Earth that we live in, kind of thing. So it's you've got this kind of Central Europe area, which is the old world, and that's where the dwarfs and the Empire and the greenskins and the vampire counts and where the chaos wastes are as well, actually. So that's the kind of races we're dealing with in this initial launch. Now, when the big expansions come, they'll open up new land masses, and they'll attach to the land mass that you already own from the previous game, and they'll bring with them the races that exist in those particular land masses. We'll also be fleshing those out with DLCs, and got a nice little program of free LC of stuff that we'll just be giving away over time as well, extra content for the races and new factions and things like that as well. So, and basically our overall philosophy is we want to, encompass the entirety of the Warhammer Fantasy Battles world map. And if there's an army book for it in old 8th edition Warhammer, then it's fair game. That's what so it's going to be big. There's going to be, we're aiming to, we want to put the lot in, basically. So our work is each of those, the plan is each of those individual installments is going to be standalone. So if there's no races like, in a particular expansion that you want, then you don't have to go for that one, So the idea is they're standalone, but if you've got them all, they plug together quite nicely. So, that's a way of getting hold of the races that you do want in a particular expansion. So.
Over here I asked whether or not we're going to be seeing any AI attacks from factions we don't necessarily own that aren't part of the main expansion packs moving forward, or any free LC. For example, a standalone expansion pack for Wood Elves, or for maybe even Kislev.
That's a good question. They might. You know what? I'd have to confirm that at a later date. But if a race like that appears in the game as playable, then chances are it's going to be there as a non-playable faction anyway. So there should be a force in the world. But I'd have to confirm that. I can't say that either way right now. I don't have that to hand. So.
And here I asked whether or not the player could be attacked in his borders by factions that don't necessarily have a set border. For example, Beastmen or Skaven, and the player does not also own the expansion packs for these races.
So we're figuring that out as we go along, basically. So at the moment, it's pretty simple because we don't have anything that's quite as ubiquitous as that. So I guess we're going to figure that out over time. Our plan is to do everything so it makes sense to the player and it makes sense to the world as well. So yeah, that's all I can really say right now. That's all fine. No.
Over here we will get on to our next round of questions, which will be detailing the Chaos Warriors, as well as whether or not we're going to be seeing some new magical stuff later down the line.
But there is some mark action in the initial launch game. The Chaos Warriors are literally it's like the Warriors of Chaos rulebook, right? That's what you get. Assuming demons may appear somewhere further down the line, they'll be just like the army books. There'll be different separate factions in their own right. So, yeah, but there will be some element of favour for the Chaos Warriors. Should we say? Put it that way? Yeah.
All right. The next question will be about Total War Warhammer's naval aspect. Now, personally, I feel like the game should have some naval warfare. However, Total War games have been historically pretty lackluster in naval combat besides Shogun 2 and Empire. So I'm glad that they're focusing on land warfare, which I feel like is probably their the best aspect of Total War games.
Like ships, ships can travel around, and you can basically build ports and build ships, and then protect your troop carriers as they float off and then attack other kind of coastal areas. So you've got troop transporting and you've got different ship types. We just don't model the full three-dimensional battle like we have done in the past. And really that was a kind of decision based on the fact that Warhammer itself, it's almost exclusively about land battles. So that's what we focused on, that's what we put our resources into, is making those land and siege and those conventional ground-based battles, the star of the show, really. So.
Next question will be about random armies that can spawn anywhere in the map and can attack your settlements like Beastmen or Savage Orcs.
Absolutely true. In the first game, actually, Savage Orcs is, depending on where you are in the world, you may or may not feel their wrath, but they just rove the land looking for, you've got the essence of it on your shirt right now, right? Yeah, 40k for what? But it's, that's what they do. They're wiring around the land, around the world, just beating people up. So So Savage Orcs is one good example of exactly that happening. Yeah, and there'll be more of that stuff with time as well. But yeah, and they're tough. Savage Orcs are tough. I mean, really tough. They, big 20 stack of Savage Orcs comes towards you. You better have.
And the last set of questions will be detailing Total War Warhammer's controversial stance on settlement capturing and conquering different factions, as well as on top of that the modding component of the game.
That far down the line, really. I mean, I can't confirm anything that's not be built yet, basically. So, what I would say is that it's not all. I think there's a lot of negativity surrounding this particular decision, which was, I think we've said it before, but it was kind of based on the lore itself. I mean, natural enemies, the greenskins and the dwarves. Greenskins have been taking the dwarf Carax for years, and the dwarves want to take them back, so they fight over that terrain, and the same with other races in the world as well. I can't say what will happen in the future, who knows what tomorrow will bring, but what I will say is that there are actually, it's hard to see from here, but there are really tangible late game benefits to doing it this way as well, because you'll find more and larger empires in the mid to late game than you do in a standard Total War game. And I remember playing Rome 2 as the Iceni. I'm from Essex in the UK, obviously I played the Iceni first, and so I painted the map blue very slowly over time, and I got halfway through the map and I'm like, there's no challenge here because I'm the biggest empire. It is just a case of just paint, just going auto resolve, take that, auto resolve, take that, and then loads and loads and loads of kind of administration in between. And by that point I thought, no, I don't need to do this now. I've won the game. I've completed my campaign objectives. I don't really need to do that, and I don't want to take anything away from people who enjoy doing that, because people do. It's always been there in a Total War game, but I'd say give it a go. Give it a go before you shout about it, because it does shake up the mid to late game, and it makes it more interesting, because you'll no doubt have dominating factions within other races whose territories you can't capture. I mean, that might not be true if you've gone on an absolute spree and razed everything to the ground. Then you're going to be surrounded. You're not going to have many factions left around you. But we've got some interesting challenges that come along in the mid to late game. So having those other empires around you still there, still beavering away, still looking to capture their own territory, does make the game kind of a bit more colourful. And not in a monochrome way, I should say. It's one of those things where, at least in this case, we're just focusing on getting the game together. We're just focusing on having a really nice, tidy, clean launch with a really good, fun game. So we'll think about that.
And that would be it for the video. I do apologize for the crappy audio quality, as well as a bunch of other errors that you might have noticed in the video, but it's the best I can do, really. And do not worry, the rest of my channel is not indicative of this type of quality. My channel usually has way shittier videos. In any case, see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Here we have
This is day one.
three 2 Y chromosome.
Hey guys, welcome to my name is Pierce. How you doing? You ever see that Pierce is just playing with his pants? Gotta adjust his pants, man. Yeah. Why this? Gotta adjust, bro.
You do that again, Sean? do come on, right now.
Yeah. Whip it out.
Come on.
No, whip it out.
Come on, whip it out! Whip it out!
Fucking whip it out.
Whip it out! Right now! I was zoomed in too!
Whip you like the Castlevania
I was zoomed in too!